Little Red Riding Hood, presented by talented siblings. Once upon a time, there was pretty little girl who loved wearing her red riding hood all the time, so people called her Little Red Riding Hood with affection. She lived with her mother and father in a beautiful house by the edge of the forest. Her grandma lived by herself in a tiny cottage at the end of the forest. Little Red Riding Hood was very fond of her granny and often crossed the forest to visit her. That day, her mother had baked a wonderful batch of chocolate chips cookies. Little Red Riding Hood, she called, would you be a dear and take this basket of fresh cookies and cakes for your grandma? She hasn't been well in a while. But of course, Mom, Red Riding Hood said happily and took the basket from her. Her mother warned her usual to go straight to Granny's home and not stop or wander here and there in the forest. Little Red Riding Hood knocked with safety but smiled secretly. She had often wandered around in the forest. Lovely flower grew in it and the colored butterfly flittered around them. Little Red Riding Hood meant to see them just once on her way of Granny. But that day, the big bad wolf saw her and followed her quietly. He wouldn't catch and eaten her up then and there, but he was afraid of woodcutters working nearby. When Red Riding Hood reached the flower valley, however, he stepped out from the behind the bushes and smiled pleasantly. Well. Isn't it nice to see such a brave little girl who isn't afraid of the woods? Why, hello, said the Red Riding Hood quietly, pleased with the compliments. She loved talking and very soon they were chatting alone happily. Within minutes the wolf found out where she was going. Granny's cottage seemed just idle to catch this plump little girl. He made an excuse and took a shortcut as he raced to Granny's home. He knocked on the door. Who is it? Asked Granny from her bed. She hadn't been feeling well at all. It is me, Granny, Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf said in a sweet voice. I have brought you some cookies. Oh, come in, my dear. The door is open, Granny said, not knowing that it wasn't her little granddaughter, but a wicked wolf. He smiling hatefully, and before Granny could recover from her shock, he picked her up and put her in the cupboard. Poor sick Granny fainted. Very quickly the wolf wore Granny's fur cap and lay in the bed, covering himself up with the bedclothes. Just then there was a knock on the door. Granny called Red Riding Hood. It's me, Red Riding Hood. May I come in? Stepped in, looking a little guilty. She had been away a while chasing the butterfly in the woods. Mom sent you some fresh cookies, she said, putting the basket of cookies on a small table. How are you feeling now, Granny? She asked, slightly worried. Much better, after hearing your sweet voice, said the wolf. Little Red Riding Hood came and sat by her bed. It was quite dark in the room as the curtains were still drawn, but surely Granny looked very different. Riding Hood peered, examined. You look so different today, Granny. So big ears you have got. All the better to hear you with my child, said the wolf, trying to pull his ear back into cap. By the time the little Red Riding Hood's eyes had adjusted to darkness, he nearly stood up in alarm and said, "What big eyes you suddenly have, Granny! All the better to see you with," the wolf said, his tummy already glowing with hunger. And little Red Riding Hood stood up suddenly, feeling afraid. "What big teeth you have, Granny! All the better to see you with," the wolf said, his tummy already glowing with hunger. And little Red Riding Hood stood up suddenly. "What big teeth you have, Granny! All the better to eat you with," growling the wolf, and jumped up, filling all his bedclothes away. Little Red Riding Hood screamed and rushed away from the room. The wolf came charging after her. She screamed as loudly as she could and threw all Granny's pots and pans at the wolf to dare him. But a wolf is a wolf, and the little girl is a little girl after all. As little Red Riding Hood was starting to feel excited, she heard the thundering blow at the door. The wolf also stopped in his tracks. The next moment the door crashed down and a large woodcutter came in swinging a huge axe in his hand. One looked at him and the wolf decided to flee. He jumped through the window and ran away as fast as his leg would carry him. Little Red Riding Hood, the woodcutter, picked up the trembling girl. "Are you all right, my child?" "Yes, sir," shuddered little Red Riding Hood. "Thank you so much for saving me." Then they heard a loud banging coming from the bruised contest. The woodcutter opened it, his axe ready in his hand, just in case. But guess who trembled out of it? Yes, it was Granny. She hugged and hugged her favorite granddaughter. "Thank God you are safe," she cried. What a terrible old wolf it was. All that excitement had completely cured Granny. She put the kettle on and served the fresh cookies Little Red Riding Hood had brought along. "We can't thank you enough for saving both of us," Granny said to the woodcutter. "Come join us for some tea." They sat eating and drinking happily. "I was really silly," said Granny. "I will keep my door closed and never open it before checking who it is." "I was sillier," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I promise I won't wander here and there in the forest and stick to the path and never ever talk to strangers." "Thank God," joined the woodcutter. "I was close by and heard you screaming." "Yes, thank God," said the Little Red Riding Hood and Granny together.